AZ-104 is not simply a list of Azure services. It measures whether you can operate an Azure environment when identity, governance, storage, compute, networking, monitoring, and recovery all affect the same outcome. If you are preparing for the Microsoft Azure Administrator certification, this orientation will show you what the exam currently measures, who it is designed for, how the score works, and where to begin in this playlist. Microsoft describes the Azure Administrator as someone who implements, manages, and monitors an organization's Azure environment. You may work with networking, security, database, application, and DevOps specialists, but your job is to keep the operating environment connected, the right identity, the right scope, the right resource configuration, and evidence that the system is healthy. You do not need to know every Azure service before you begin. But this is an intermediate role-based certification, not a first cloud concepts exam. Microsoft expects familiarity with operating systems, networking, servers, and virtualization. You should also have practical experience with PowerShell, Azure CLI, the Azure Portal, Resource Manager templates or Bicep, and Microsoft Entra ID. If several of those tools are completely new, build hands-on familiarity before treating a practice score as a readiness signal. The current study guide measures 5 skill areas. Identity and governance represents 20 to 25%. Storage represents 15 to 20%. Compute represents 20 to 25%. Virtual networking represents 15 to 20%. Monitoring and maintaining Azure resources represents 10 to 15%. Those ranges are a study map, not permission to ignore the smaller domain. Monitoring, backup, recovery, alerts, and diagnostics are often how an administrator proves that a configuration works. Microsoft technical exams use a scaled score from 1 to 1,000, and 700 or greater is required to pass. But 700 does not necessarily mean 70% of the questions. The score is calibrated around the skills required for competence and the difficulty of the questions. There is no penalty for guessing, and some questions may be included for evaluation rather than scoring. Answer every question, but do not convert your practice percentage directly into a predicted Microsoft score. Microsoft says most certification exams typically contain between 40 and 60 questions, but the number can change. Associate and expert exams are generally 100 minutes without labs, or 120 minutes when labs may be present. Your registration and launch screens provide the actual time and current experience. On role-based exams, Microsoft Learn is available inside the exam, but the clock keeps running, and some Learn areas are excluded. Use it for targeted verification, not as a replacement for preparation. Visit Microsoft's exam sandbox before test day, so the interface itself is not new. This playlist currently includes 2 full 50-question practice exams. Start with Part 1 as a baseline. Do not only record the total. Group every miss by domain and by the decision that failed: scope, service choice, configuration, or operational evidence. Review those patterns, then take Part 2, which emphasizes Azure Administrator scenarios. The goal is not to memorize our answers. It is to make your decision process more reliable when the wording and constraints change. Try this. You are comfortable deploying virtual machines, but you repeatedly miss virtual networking and monitoring questions. What should you do next? Do not immediately repeat the same full test. Review the missed networking and monitoring mechanisms, practice the tools that expose effective routes, alerts, logs, backup, and recovery state, and then use Part 2 to test transfer in new scenarios. Your next video should be selected by evidence, not by playlist order alone. Here is the operating loop. Map the domains, take a baseline, classify the misses, practice the weak mechanisms, and test again with new scenarios. Before you schedule the real exam, recheck the current AZ-104 study guide, because Microsoft updates role-based exams as the job changes. When you are ready, Begin with Practice Exam Part 1. Treat every miss as a diagnostic signal and build the confidence that comes from understanding why the system behaves the way it does.